So we are in the middle of a crisis, and the point is that the temptation for the current year could be to backslide. That is the most regular temptation when you are suffering a crisis. It is to stop, to backslide, and to try to accommodate your reality into that dramatic time. And that is something that we have to resist to. We have to resist to any backsliding. We have to honor the promise of Paris plus the legacy of Glasgow. That is the only way. And we have to continue moving the process forward. But also we are in a COP in which there are not too many mandates that should be fulfilled in this COP. And I am not blaming anybody. What I am saying is that this COP it is in the middle of mandates that probably some of those would be fulfilled in the next COP, in COP28. But despite of that, we have to continue moving the needle. We have to continue moving the process forward. We have to define ways to continue enhancing ambition. So the atmosphere it is completely different. And let me add one more thing. In COP26 also, something that was raised by the UN Secretary General, it was related to this credibility gap, the point of credibility, no? That mostly related to credible climate claims. No? We know that most of the climate system has been created in a voluntary basis. Now many people is asking and requesting to move toward regulation, to make this system a more mandatory one, to make it enforceable. And that is interesting because the point it is, how should we organize the system? Because many of the groups and initiatives that have developed good things as SBTI, no, they have gotten their legitimacy because of their own action. But nobody had appointed SBTI to be the standard setter. The point it is, what should we do to rebuild that credibility system? Because for me, the credibility of the net zero, it is like the cardiovascular system of the climate body. No, it is a key one. If there is not credibility in the climate system, in the net zero objective, we will fail. The point it is that we do need to address that. We will have, I think, tomorrow, the report of the high-level expert group led by Catherine McKenna. So we are expecting to have good recommendations to recover that credibility. And also, I am taking too much time, sorry, Fernanda. We are in a time in which in 3 weeks after COP or 2 weeks after COP, we will have the CBD COP. And it is a time that is a positive scenario because it is a time in which we should start to think on what could be the advantage of working in convergence. Let's imagine a country in a developing world or one of the poorest or more vulnerable countries of the world. What can we do to promote more effective tools to implement not only our climate objective, but also our nature objective? So to work in convergence, it should be, in my point of view, something key in this COP. This is the last stop of the train towards COP15. And we have to move the world towards a nature-positive objective. We should move the train towards nature-based solution recognition as a key tool to address the intertwined crisis. We should strengthen the role of non-state actors, not only for climate, but also for nature. So there are many things that we can work on. So the scenario in that side, nature and climate, it should be a positive one. Let me make this analogy that I love to raise it. When we think on climate, and how much we are progressing on climate, I love to use the analogy of the formation of the solar system. So in the climate debate, we have already gotten the sun, the main star, because nobody's doubting that 1.5, net zero, and resilient are key objectives, for sure, with some contentious discussions because of the content. But the objective itself, it is clear, that is the main star. But sometimes the main star, it is not enough. We do need to develop gravitational forces. What are those gravitational forces that can help the actors to be well aligned in orbit? In climate, it has been the connection in between climate and the economy. That is, for me, one of those key elements. Climate, it is strongly connected to the economy. It's becoming an economic issue that it is moving decision makers to take a strong decision. They know that the future of their countries and the future of their corporations, in case of business sector, are strongly related to climate consideration, what it is good. A second gravitational force for climate, it has been science. What science has provided to us, mostly because of the IPCC. All the reports have shown to be very effective in moving decision makers towards something else. The role of non-state actors, also that has been key, among many other elements. When we think what are the gravitational forces that could move the world towards a clear nature vision, unfortunately, we don't have those gravitational forces. We have to create it. We have to develop those. First, the main star, that in our point of view, it should be the nature positive vision. But also, we have to strengthen the non-state actors' agenda. We have to develop a narrative that can connect nature with the economy. We should continue working in strengthening the role of science for nature among some other elements. So we do need to work in that third scenario, the nature and climate one. Let me finish by saying that we do need to show in this COP that despite the times of emergency, the process it is unstoppable and irreversible. That is for me key. This process should show in the current times that it is a feasible process, that we will continue progressing in this process despite the times of emergency. If we are able to do that, that will be a great success. Because even in times of emergency, something else it could be done. That is why, last phrase, I really appreciate what the US has just done with the Inflation Reduction Act. It is interesting how much, because of an inflation reason, a law, it is containing a climate package. So it is interesting to see that political message that to reduce inflation and to address the current financial and economic crisis of the world, we can continue promoting renewable energy or energy efficiency or just transition. And that is the message that we have to show to the world in this COP, that even in times of emergency, the climate process, it is a possible one.
Okay, thank you very much, Manuel. We'll come back to you with the second round, in the second round of questions, but now I want to hear from my African colleagues. I think that, as this is an African COP, it would be great to hear from them, so I would ask my colleague and friend Lohan on what we need this COP to deliver on the issues of adaptation, loss and damage, and finance, globally and also from an African perspective, since those are such important issues for Africa.
Thank you, Fernanda. And first of all, let me really, since it's the first event in this pavilion, to welcome you all to this city of Sharm el-Sheikh, to Africa. Yes, we are proud of hosting the COP in Africa. And meaning that we, as a host, we want to make the most benefit out of this COP taking place in Africa. And for sure, we think it's very important to put on the table these things that are very, very sensitive and very important to our livelihood. And for us, you have heard it, and let me repeat it. Adaptation to climate change is a no-brainer for us. Many things, many discussion has been taking place. Many pledges, we had it in the COP26, but we really want these COP to be, and you have seen it from the expectation from the Egyptian presidency, is the implementation COP. Implementation means many things for many people, but what we want you to take out as a message here is the implementation of what has been pledged in Glasgow. Let's go to revisit those pledges and see how much progress has made toward that. And be assured that the African countries, before coming here, and that even right after Glasgow, they started actually going through the mathematics. But it's maybe sad to see that maybe at the end of the day, what came out of those is basically zero. So we are still looking forward to really translating into what has been promised to African countries, let's say to developing countries in terms of adaptation, to come to fruition. So this is really a plea for us because we are not equipped as African and to cope with those changes and so on. How for those who had a chance or to live in some African countries to see that our cities, our beautiful cities after a storm will become, our streets become deadly flowing rivers because we are not prepared for that. So adaptation is certainly for us another opportunity that we want to seize at this COP27 to really go to action. And you can see it actually written in our pavilion here. It's time for action. And linked to that, very much linked to that, we do have definitely the loss and damages. And we, as a continent, certainly we are very happy to see that is now on the official agenda. But let's not fool ourselves. One thing is putting that on the agenda, but the other things is what are we going to even discuss? Are we going to discuss compensation? Are we going to discuss flexibility, liability? Are we going to discuss the financial mechanism to allow and for compensation? These are things that we really want to really transform in practical ways the decision that was made yesterday to put on the table, on the agenda, the loss and damages. And finally, something that we were really dreaming at, and the dream came through, is to see the special circumstances and need of Africa to be considered, certainly not as on the official agenda, but at least as informal consultation and so on. For us is a major breakthrough because we don't really say that Africa is different. It's a common responsibilities, but we also have to acknowledge and recognize that Africa is facing certain situations that other countries, other regions don't know. So we are very, very pleased that the international community is offering this venue, the COP27, as the first place where this issue is going to be addressed. And we hope that at least something will come through and that our next COP, we don't need to beg for it. Africans are not beggars. We want to access what we're entitled to. And we are thankful to the international community to be actually listening to our calls and so on.
Great, Laurent. Great points. Very, very important that we deliver on adaptation, loss and damage, finance, that we discuss the special circumstances of Africa. Now, to complete our Africa picture, I'm giving the floor to our North Africa Director, Jamel. And the question is the same. What must this COP deliver, but on the issues of mitigation and nature, building on what Manuel said, globally and from a North Africa perspective? I don't know, you could try.
Working? No? Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, everyone, for being here in this first event, and it's also event for me in the COP, so it's important. And I will join Laurent when he say welcome to Africa. I will say welcome to Africa here in Egypt, and welcome to the region. I'm starting with reminding you the weather outside and in November. Yeah. So we're talking climate change in November. with 31 and 30 degree outside. So this is a good reminder for us. What's the expectation on the mitigation from the COP? Mitigation and the expectation linked to the expected impact of climate change on the region and the world. Expected impact can be different between region, but as Laurent say, in Africa, it's a specific situation. We have a region that is very, very well vulnerable to climate change, that is already impacted by climate change. And I can say it's under climate change more than 50 years now. In a region where the challenges caused by climate change that should be addressed by mitigation are linked to water security, food security, energy transition, but also climate immigration. Climate immigration within country, climate immigration within region, but also climate immigration for water and the climate integration for better economic situation, especially in North Africa, where we are in some region in North Africa, we are a few kilometers from Europe. 14 kilometers in Morocco, between Morocco and Europe, 70 kilometers between Tunisia and Italy. And this is not the immigration from North Africa, this is the immigration from Africa. Because North African countries are receiving, not only sending immigrant, but are receiving immigrant, and big part of that are caused by stressed economy and economy dependent to natural resource that are already stressed by climate change. Let's take the example of Egypt. Most of you or all of you came here by airplane, and the airplane flew over Delta Nile, that green spot. We are in Egypt, where more than 100 million Egyptians that are using resource of 5% of the surface of the country. So 5% are providing food, water, everything to 100 million. 5% of the surface are providing resources for 95% of the population. Imagining what could 30% do. Imagining what the message that can be taken, as Manuel said, from COP15 to from COP27 to COP15. We have a thin layer of water, fresh water, that are bringing food for 95% of the population. And this thin layer is very vulnerable to climate change. It's very vulnerable to pollution. It's very vulnerable to any kind of anthropization in that ecosystem. Any instability in that ecosystem, in that 5% will impact 95% of the country, will impact 95% of the population. Take this pilot, take this example, and see what can be done with 30% goal that will be discussed in COP15. So this is what the region expects, that take into consideration the region needs, the region specific situation, the region vulnerability to climate change. We are also in a region where in northern Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, you have a Mediterranean forest, very similar to Italy, Spain, Germany, everything. And you go in the same country, in 2 days, you will be in the desert. You will see all the ecosystem from the Mediterranean forest, the European forest, to the desert of Africa within the same country in hundreds of kilometers. So you can travel through the countries in North Africa, but you can travel through climate change. You can travel through impacts. You can see what climate change look like in the future within one country. So there is expectation from COP27 from the region. There is specific condition for the region to be taken into consideration, but also there is a responsibility on the follow-up after COP27 for mitigation, for adaptation, follow-up that should be also shared responsibility between delegation, between party, between international NGO, because this is part of our role as WWF in North Africa. We are collaborating with Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Morocco, and hopefully soon also Egypt. We need to make this follow-up and take into and make sure that the delegation we know the people, we work with them. We know that the delegation in Egypt or in Tunisia present here are, let me say, in the best cases, uh, contacting the delegation going to COP15. And this is not a good example. They are disconnected. The people preparing for Montreal now, they are preparing everything. The people working on climate change, they are here, they are discussing everything. And maybe they will not meet. Maybe the people arrive there and the other travels without meet or without discussion. So this is part of our role in WWF, and we encourage other organizations to do the same, to make sure that right messages and right comment should be taken from here to Montreal. Thank you.
All right, great. It's very important what you said about the vulnerability of the region, and I think, you know, all countries face the difficulties of communication on the various sectors of government. This is also a problem that's shared. It's not only from the region. But in this second round, I think I will pose the same question to all panelists, and I might even respond. I am a moderator, but I also feel tempted to talk, but after you. So my question would be kind of a challenge. What is your measure of success for COP27? What does success look like for you? So I'll start with you, Manuel.
I think that in some way I've already answered that question. For me, the measure of success, it will be related to our ability as a world, not only to keep this process alive, but to add value to the process despite of the times of emergency. That is for me key, because probably most of people around the world, it is suffering of lack of hope, kind of pessimism because of what it is happening. We are reminding what used to be a nuclear threat in the past. We are exactly in the same. We are reminding times of inflation. We are reminding times of energy crisis. So it is a really difficult time for people. So the point it is that this process has to send to people a signal of hope, a signal that despite and even in that difficult situation, the process is moving things forward. For me, that is a key element. We know that we will sort this time of crisis. But the point it is that the climate change, it is an even bigger crisis. So the point it is that we have to send that signal to the world. Yesterday in a panel I shared to the audience something that for me it is a bit sad when some friend asked me, okay, you are going again to a COP, no? To climate COP. But why? Things are not happening. That is probably exactly for you. People is thinking, but for what if things are not happening? No? So people is losing hope in the process. And we have to recover that hope. It is in our hands. It is in our hands to continue pushing the process forward and to keep the optimism. So there shouldn't be sense of failure on us. No, I think that we should be key actors to continue pushing the hope signal that this is a feasible process. So that is for me the measure of success. And also we have to take advantage of having a COP in which there are people negotiating in one side, but we have actors. We have actors moving things forward, and that is positive. It is positive to feel the energy of actors in different fronts, in different sectors, working toward the same collective objective, and that is key. And probably also we have to always remind the transitions. We have to walk the transition that science has suggested to us, the energy one, no, towards clean energy, and we do need to keep that in mind in the current time. We do need to probably strengthen the transition of the energy efficiency and the industries and the circular economy. We have to keep in mind that as the last IPCC report told us, emissions are mostly growing in cities. So we have to work more with cities, with mayors, with towns, because it is in that area in which emissions are growing. But fortunately, science has shown to us that there are solutions and that we can continue pushing for those solutions. And we do need to continue addressing the land use, agriculture, and deforestation transition. Because unfortunately, during times of pandemic, mostly in tropical areas, deforestation rates have grown, and that is not good. That is not good. We do need to address that transition in a stronger way. And we do need to recognize that we have some tools as nature-based solutions, and there could be some others. Nature-based solutions, it is not the single one. There could be some others, it is true. But we do need to continue working in bringing and giving solutions to people. And let me also say something about adaptation. I don't know how many of you have already read the Adaptation Gap Report. No? It is saying that despite that, I think 93% of the world has already developed some kind of adaptation plan. So not national adaptation plans, not that one, unfortunately, because just 37 countries have presented a formal national adaptation plan, but probably some domestic plan, some other plan, 93%. There is a gap in between the adaptation needs and the adaptation resources. So the adaptation needs, it is 10 times more than available resources, 10 times more. And we do need to cover that gap, because if not, people will continue suffering. And that is something that we have to strongly address. So also a measure of success, in my point of view, it will be related to adaptation, to get progress in adaptation.
All right, so yeah, I think Manuel has to go for a while, no? Yeah, but yeah, so let's hear from Jamel. Jamel, what's your measure of success for this COP? What does success look like for you?
So I prepared for that question by asking the taxi driver this morning the same question. And he said the COP is very successful. I have a lot of clients, better money, so it's good to have to organize always the COP. And he felt the COP is good because he had a role in it. He contributed, he drive people. The small shop sell money, sell food or sell gifts. So it's a matter of interaction, impact, and to be impacted by this at any level. If a successful COP will listen to the people contributing to the COP. A successful COP will impact the people contributing to the COP in both ways. So a good COP will give good message to COP15, already said, but the good COP will give good impact on decision maker, on the country, on the policy, give a role to everyone. We want to hear young people, we want to hear women, we want to hear all groups of people. If they have a heard voice, if they have a role in the COP, they will be happy about the COP because their voice was recognized. Big NGO, international NGO, local NGO, small NGO, activists, right activists, private sector. If they have a role in the COP, they have their voice heard, but also they follow and they have good guidance and good orientation from the COP, they will be happy and everyone will take home message and will try to follow up on that. But everyone, when they're preparing to the next COP, they say, I know it's a lot of people, I know a lot of airplane, I know a lot of hotels, but I know that things will be changed and people will hear me no matter who I am. So it's a matter of impact in both way and follow-up indicators for each COP. I think the same thing here for COP27.
And Lohan, what's the success of COP for you?
The success for me, we were walking down the corridor here and someone was asking where is the WWF Pavilion. So it was Durel, my colleague Durel and I. Okay, it was easy for us. Yeah. So success for me would be that anybody you will meet here, you ask where the WWF pavilion is, will say this is where is it. So that will be for me a very very important success because people know where it is here. But this is opportunity to say kudos to the colleagues who put all the efforts in having this beautiful place that we're launching, we're opening today. And on another note, I think if you walk down at the GRC pavilion, you will see GRC country solution. It's the meaning of it is very, very deep. Why DRC could be a country of solution? Because DRC is about 60% of the Congo Basin. So meaning, in other words, that Congo Basin is a solution. Solution to what? Solution to climate change. So this takes me to actually us talking about COP15. And what you know, also while we are here, Ramsar also they are having their own discussion. CITES is also coming. So it looks like we are converging. So for me, the success will be how much convergence there will be in the different narratives that we have. So that nature is seen as what God has given us actually freely as a solution to those big issues that we have. How much do we take advantage of this gift to address climate change? And it's up to us to ensure that what will come out of here have a bearing in the decision or even will inform the decision that's been taken in Montreal and so on. So for me, it's when this COP will end that I go back to the decisions, the outcome to see, oh, there are more and more mention to, yes, talking about nature positive world, nature resilient Africa. You can see it written somewhere. For me, that will be a very important element of success and so on. Yeah. This convergence of narrative, this conversion efforts toward collective solution to a common problem, which is the climate change.
Okay, so now I'll give you my answer, although no one asked me. I didn't introduce myself. I am Fernanda Carvalho. I am the head of policy of the climate and energy practice. And I thought the answers here were just fantastic because Manuel mentioned, you know, the credibility issue, the optimism, and the process being trusted and able to deliver. Jamel mentioned the people aspect, which is key. COP has to provide for people. And Laurent mentioned the visibility of WWF, and of course we want that. We want to be seen as an organization that can bring solutions, put solutions on the table, and also the nature and convergence aspect. Those are all very important. But for me, what is important here and what is the measure of success at this COP? It's the how. And the how connects to processes, those very wonky processes that are being discussed in the rooms. So the first one is a mitigation work program. We need a strong mitigation work program because we are not where we need to be according to the Paris Agreement. The NDCs that we have on the table are not doing the trick, and we are not even close to the track to be 1.5 compatible or to hold global warming to 1.5. So we want a strong program that can fix that before 2030. We want strong delivery on adaptation, as Manuel mentioned, and that would be, you know, a roadmap for delivering on adaptation because countries have committed to double, more than double, or at least double their finance pledges. And also that resources are equally divided between mitigation and adaptation. So this is also important. The loss and damage funding facility is a key result, that we need coming out of this COP. I don't know if we get a fully constructed fund at this COP because this is hard, but if we get a decision and if we get a process on that, this will be very important. And last but not least, the Glasgow decision touched on some aspects that, you know, we need one step further of this COP. It mentioned energy after 30 years of the convention. It also mentioned nature. It mentioned, you know, the need for a just energy transition. So we need all those aspects to be built upon. And last but not least, since I am from Brazil, I'm also interested in see what the changes in government can bring to the COP. Not only in my country, but in other countries as well, in the US, Australia, and others. And in Brazil, that means for us that, you know, 1.5 remains possible because now we have a new government that could care about the environment. If we had another 4 years of the previous government, probably 1.5 would be gone because the Amazon would be under threat. So that's my reply to this question and what I would like to see out of this COP. But now, as we have some time, I would like to see if the audience wants to contribute or if it has some questions to our panelists. So anyone interested in asking some questions? Any questions from the audience? Anyone? Come on, no one. We were so clear. There's nothing you want to know from us. Manuel wants to, maybe he wants to ask a question. Let's see.
No, more than to ask a question, I fully agree with Fernanda about the mitigation work program. When we adopted Paris Agreement, we thought that this would be a 5-year cycle process. It is still a 5-year cycle process. What it is good, no, with this ratchet mechanism and all of that you know well. But the add value of the mitigation work program, it is that it is changing the cycle in some way. It is defining that year by year, we have to continue reviewing how much we have advanced and what else we must do. What it is good. That's the advantage of the mitigation work program, that could continue pushing parties and really actors into raising more ambition and based in the fact that we are not on track. No, because for sure it is based in the fact of what the synthesis report and the mitigation gap report have just told to us, that in the current time, we would raise temperature more close to 2.5, 2.7, and that is not enough. So the idea of a mitigation work program, that it could sound too technical, it is that it is a mechanism to annually pushing for more and more. But that is something that we can take decisions here, but immediately we have to move it domestically to our own countries to continue pushing our government, our decision makers to do their part. That connect me with one more thing that it has not been already mentioned, the long-term strategies. No? The Glasgow Pact also mentioned the importance, the encouragement to parties to put on the table long-term strategies. But unfortunately, not too many countries have done it. And that is key, because if you have an NDC, but you don't have the long-term vision, your action, it won't be well guided with a clear vision. So that is why the importance of the long-term strategy. How are we planning to get by 2050? No? That is a key element. And I hope that after this COP, you all can continue pushing your decision makers to define the long-term strategy. That is a key element that sometimes we are forgetting.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, any questions, comments? Do you want to interact with us? Yep.
Hello. My name is Daniel Kofi Abu. I work with Tropembos, Ghana, from Ghana. My question is, what will change? are we going to come back next year to re-echo this exact thing that we have said? When my brother was talking, he did said that we are looking at action-based activities. Enough of the talking. My question is, what will change? What is WWF strategy going forward? What would be different from what happened last year?
Will be different from what happened last year. That's what he's mentioned. Sorry? This works now. What will be different from what happened last year? That's a very good question, I think. It's not for me to answer, but maybe I will.
I can try to reply, but what can be different for a cycle of climate change or a discussion or a change for climate change? You can on the ground, on the climate, on the 1.5 goal, you can expect nothing, because sometimes people came, and especially we have this discussion with the funding agency or with developing project, and want to develop project to target climate change issue with concrete result in 2 years. How you get concrete result on a climate change in 2 years? I don't know. But what can I change? What can be changed in a year round are engagement, budget availability, legislation, way of management, integration of private sector, some indicators or on energy use. The goal, for example, the goal of on CO2, 43%. Some of the countries in North Africa, all of them are less than that. But the best one is Egypt. They are engaged with 42%. In Tunisia, they engaged in 35%. One can happen in a year that we can convince them to engage in that. We can convince them to put legislation, to put some decision to implement that. How to measure that? You cannot measure that in 1 year, but you can hope for that and prepare the necessary push, necessary advocacy, necessary project, necessary funding, and hope that thing will change. Because we are following scientific indicators. We are not making science, but we are following reliable scientists that do this recommendation, and we are working with the government, with the manager, with the NGO, with the local community to mitigate, to adapt, but also to prepare for them tools to mitigate and to adapt. And that tools can be prepared in 1 year. But as a result, on the ground, on the 1.5 degree, in a year round, you can measure nothing. I think for climate.
Let me also try to answer the question by using the no excuses. So when we adopted the Paris Agreement, we thought that we would be on track by 2020. No, that is what mostly we thought. No, 2020, good time to be on track. But then we had the pandemic. We are still in a time of pandemic, but it started in 2019. So we postponed the COP26 for a year. No, we had some excuses. No, we didn't fulfill with 100 billion pledge. No, we didn't fulfill with strong NDCs to put us well on track to the 1.5. We didn't fulfill with many things. And probably we recognize that it was because all what we had suffered because of the pandemics. But now, seems that we are going back to a business as usual as before of pandemics time. And there is no way that we can go back to that. It should be a different time. So the point is that now there are no excuses. Even in this time of emergency and war, there are no excuses. And also more because, or even more because all the extreme climate events that we have suffered during the year, clear events around the world. So the point is that now we have to push with a clear message that no excuses. We can't wait for more for the 100 billion. It is 100 billion. We know that those are peanuts. What is the cost, the real cost of the energy, just the energy transition? Trillion. So the point it is that now we are in a time in which we should push the world to fulfill with what they've already pledged to do. Or if not, nobody will believe on the process. And the process deserves to be recovered in sense of credibility, hope, and trust. So no excuses. It is, in my point of view, the different thing that we have to do. I know that we have to run. Sorry for that. Sorry, Fernanda.
Okay. All right. Do you want to reply?
Yes, just my brother. A couple of things. I think what could change, what change we can see. I think let's take at the country level, because we also have to understand that the decisions, the outcome of those meetings is also something that each country should also internalize and take action on. The activity or the outcome, the changes that you could see at a several level, different level. Let's say at the policy level. What each country should ask after going here is what came out of, to reflect on the outcome. And very often, I don't see many countries doing that. Reflect on what has came out of this and say, what does it mean for us as a country first? And this is something we at WWF in Africa, we try to really encourage our partners, the government, to do, so that they know that, yes, we can keep people responsible if we know really what we expect and what came out of that. Yeah. And sometimes what the action needed is not only the international community. It is even for each country to create, let's say, the framework, the legal framework within the country to make some changes happen. And that's where we can also call fault on ourselves as a country and so on. And the second, one thing that I certainly know more is that after the COP26, I've seen that in Congo Basin, when the government, the official went back, few weeks or even 1 month later, they call upon a meeting, ministerial meeting, to reflect on all those pledges and so on. And since then, we have seen that they are trying to organize and see to translate those big acronyms and so on, the big mechanism, something that really tangible, practical, financial mechanism they can have access to that. Yeah. So I think it's a call to each of the countries, be it the individual countries or the regional economic communities and so on, to come together. And I think, I'm sure that at the COP28, something that came out of 26, we will see maybe a few dollars or pounds or euros flowing into some tangible project that we as a country are able also to develop. So we have to interrogate ourselves first. How are we preparing ourselves to really translate the outcome of the COPs into action?
So yeah, I'm also tempted to reply to this question. And yeah, I think 1 year, the time of politics is different, but I've been following this process for 15 years, about now, you know. I'm old, I'm confessing, no, just kidding. But I just wanted to tell you that I saw many, many changes, and sometimes I think that society is ahead of the process, and, but the process sends important signals to society. What are examples of this? For example, youth. We have seen a huge movement of youth growing and get engaged on COPs. I have seen, for example, people from my country interested in COPs participating in the process. We saw climate change being discussed in the debates in the presidential campaign, which is something that wouldn't really happen 10 years before. I've seen, I've accompanied the indigenous peoples from Brazil that didn't understand anything about climate change. They come here, they express their voices, they demand. People here, some do, some don't. We wish things move faster. Yes, we do. Things should move much faster because the window to 1.5 is closing, and that's really, really serious. Every year it becomes farther away. But this year, for example, I think that the fossil fuel crisis, I won't say it's an opportunity because it's not, of course, an opportunity, but it has made the world realize that our fossil fuel dependency is serious and can compromise us in so many aspects, even in food supply and food security. And we should act on that. It's important. It's a moral imperative. We are here at a COP in Africa, one of the continents that is the most affected. So I believe that we'll keep moving and this process might continue and send the strong signals to society that in some cases is ahead of the process. Another key example that I'm forgetting, but I just remember now, is the price of renewable energy. Where were we 15 or 10 years before? And now renewable energy, wind energy, solar energy are available for countries. So there are signals of change if we want to see them. But of course, I also would like to see lots of changes and this issue resolved in 1 year. But it's just not possible. What we can do is be fighting every year again and not letting go of what we want out of this process because civil society also has an important role being here. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments from the audience? No, were we so clear that you guys understood everything that we had to say? So I'd like to thank you very much for being here with us today. Thank you for your attention. We have a whole program for the PandaHub through the days of COP. Please visit us. As I mentioned, this is the house for the panda friends and also for friends of the panda who are not pandas but are our friends. So please come and join us in our events. Thank you very much. Thanks to my colleagues.